Hi guys, it's Rach. Today I have book chat number 10 for you guys. I'm really excited. We are finally in double figures and I'm happy that I've been able to keep this series going for as long as we have. Thank you so much to those of you who watch these videos, who enjoy reading. I know it's not my most popular series on my channel, but I'm happy to do them and happy to share my love of reading and share my recommendations with you guys, and also get recommendations from you because you guys are awesome and I love being able to chat books with you. So I've been doing some reading. Let's start talking about it. The first books I want to talk about are by Rebecca Phillips, and this is the Just You series. There are two books that I've read anyway so far, and this is the first kind of young adult, like truly young adult series that I've read in a little while, where the characters are sort of 16, 17-year-olds. Most of the time most recently I've been reading books where the characters are usually at the very youngest in their late teens, usually in their early 20s, sometimes even older. So it was a nice kind of sweet sort of departure from what I have been reading of late. Series starts with a girl, she's 16 in high school. She hasn't had the sort of greatest opinion on relationships anyway, because her father cheated on her mother and remarried, so she's never looked at them that great, and she's just found out that her current boyfriend has been cheating on her, and she's kind of indifferent to it in a way because she just sort of thinks that that's the way that relationships go. She then gets taken to a party by one of her more sort of outgoing friends and meets this guy who turns out to be really nice and good looking and seems popular, and she doesn't quite understand why he is attracted to her, but he is, and they start this relationship, and it kind of she has to sort of deal with her trust issues and at the same time is falling for this guy, and that's basically where this story goes. He's a year older than her, so the next book starts where this one finishes up, and it's after the summer. They've been together. She has kind of dealt with her issues and they're in love, but at the same time he's about to leave for college, and he's going to a college that is a fair distance away. His father's a little bit controlling and he has to go to this sort of fancy college, and he decides to just do it. The book is called Someone Else, and as you can kind of get from that title, they have a little bit of drama. Long distance relationships usually do. She's in her last year of high school. He's in his first year at uni. It's a difficult time, and it's, I guess, made a lot more difficult by the fact that you can't see each other all the time, and those trust issues come back. And eventually, I'm going to spoil a little bit of this story, so it's a bit of a spoiler alert. If you don't want to know what happens, maybe mute now, but they break up for a little bit, and she starts seeing another guy that she's kind of partnered with at school, and they have a little bit of a tumultuous relationship. He's quite controlling, and there's a little bit of drama that goes with that. Eventually, however, it's a good ending, I'll say that. So that's the general gist of the story. I do think the second book was probably written better than the first one, which is a good sign. They were okay, maybe not my favourite books ever, but they showed promise, and if you like that kind of story, if you enjoy sort of novels set in high school and things like that, then maybe this one is worth checking out for you. The next little duo of books I want to talk about, this one is by C.M. Doporto, and this is the University Park series. The first book is called Opposing Sides. This one is set at university, as the series name suggests, and we meet a girl who is engaged. She's engaged to the son of a preacher. She has sort of grown up with quite strict parents, haven't let her have a lot of freedom. She's kind of marrying this guy a lot because of her parents, and she doesn't really know if he loves her because he doesn't show her a lot of affection. This one, it kind of looks like there's going to be a love triangle, but honestly there's really not, because the fiance really isn't endeared to the reader at all. I honestly didn't like him. He seemed like a good guy who was, or like somebody who's portraying himself as a good guy because he has all these morals, but in actual fact he really wasn't the greatest boyfriend or partner and really shouldn't have proposed or been marrying this girl. So she's kind of going along with this and trying to make this relationship work in some really quite awkward fashion. Some of the things made me cringe a little bit, the way that she put herself out there to try and get her fiance to show that he loved her or he had any kind of affection for her at all. And at the same time, she is tutoring the college's football star. Just think your stereotypical college quarterback. He's popular, good looking, very athletic, a player, but also a bit of a bad boy with a slightly like good heart underneath. That's kind of, like I said, in a way it's very predictable, but I mean a lot of the books that I read are she starts to feel attraction for this guy, and in the end decides that she really doesn't want to be with her fiance. She's going to go against her parents and just sort of end the relationship because it's just not working. She starts to kind of take up with the football player, but obviously there are a lot of issues that come with that. Him being really popular and previously being like a man whore, that causes a lot of issues. So the next book that we have, she's kind of made her decision, and she is going to give this relationship with the football player a go. It's called The Same Side. It kind of wraps up the story. Like I said, there are some issues, there's some drama. Some of it was a little bit forced, like for the drama for the sake of having drama. I felt like with the last two books, I felt like the second one was written better than the first one. Still probably not my favourite books ever. Some of the writing was a little bit over the top, but if you like that kind of thing, if you like novels set in college and football and things like that, then you might like this series. A book that I really did enjoy and would 100% recommend is by Emma Chase. It's Tide. This, I think, is the last book in this series. I've mentioned it before, the Tangled series. It's written from the perspective of Drew, who is a hilarious guy and just your typical player that I guess was tamed by a strong woman, and that's what this story has been like. I've mentioned the series before in a few book chats. If you haven't gone out and read it, highly recommend it. Adult contemporary romance with a massive serving of humour, and I just loved the realness of him and how frank he was, and this book didn't disappoint at all. Emma Chase is an awesome author, and I can't wait to read what she writes next, because she does writing from a guy's perspective really well. I really like books that are written from the male perspective if they're done well. I think that they can be really unique and a nice break from your typical romance novels, considering, especially when you read as much as I do, it's something different, and I just think it was absolutely awesome. Another series that I've been reading for a while is the Assassins series by Toni Aleo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. This one is based around the Nashville Assassins, which is I think it's a fictional hockey team. I don't know. Anyway, I really have enjoyed these books, and I've mentioned them before because I like the fact that usually in these stories it's the girl that kind of stuffs up and is the one that needs to be pushed into the relationship as opposed to the guy, which again I think is a nice departure from the usual books where it's the girl who wants the relationship and it's the guy who's kind of hesitant at first. This one we meet a hockey player, Philip, who is has been charged with looking after his 16-year-old niece because his mother and his sister, who's the mum of the niece, were both kind of drop kicks and have passed away. They were into drugs and things like that, and he's finally gotten custody of his niece, but she's dealing with her own issues obviously because she's been brought up that way, and he's trying to break through to her and prove that he loves her, and at the same time try and keep up with his hockey career and things like that. His niece Claire is really into dance and eventually starts taking dance classes by Reese, who's the main female in this book. She's been mentioned in previous stories before, so I like the fact that this is kind of all linked together. The whole sort of Assassins family, as they call it, have been mentioned in all the books, and they come back in each of the stories, so it's always really nice when you get to hear how the people's stories progressed in previous books, even if this book isn't concentrating on them specifically. Reese and Philip have an instant attraction, and they kind of start this relationship, and at the same time Reese is kind of falling for Claire as well, and has started a strong relationship with her, and Claire has basically said to Philip that she doesn't really want him to date Reese at all because she's had all these people sort of stripped from her life, and she doesn't want to lose Reese once Philip breaks her heart or something like that. That's kind of one element of drama in the story. The other element is, of course, Reese doesn't really want a relationship herself. She's always been a little bit of a person who doesn't necessarily want to get married or have kids. She wants to just have fun, has a lot of one-night stands and things like that, and she ends up having this almost friends with benefits relationship with Philip, but Philip wants more, and it's about Reese kind of getting over her issues and about them trying to work out how they're going to be a little bit of a family. I really do like the way they're written. They're a decent length as well, and I feel like I'm probably not doing them justice by the way that I'm explaining the story, but I would highly recommend the Nashville Assassins series by Toni Aleo. It's great. A spin-off series that she started is Boarded by Love, And this one actually concentrates on Claire. So Claire, the niece from the book that I just mentioned, she has gone off to college. So it's like, I think it's sort of set like a year later or 2 years later. And this is her own little romance novel. And while at college, she meets, surprise, surprise, a hockey player, but the Bellevue Bullies, which is the college hockey team, and it's about her relationship with one of the hockey players. He's a bit of a player too, and they start a relationship, and again, because of her past, she's kind of hesitant to be in a relationship too, feels like a little bit like she's going to end up like her mum and her grandmother, and there's sort of a whole heap of drama that their relationship is quite interesting, and I like the fact that the drama of their relationship is not so much his causing, but it's a bit her as well. She's a dancer, and she happens to dance dance burlesque, so she's not stripping or anything like that, but she hides that from both her uncle and from her boyfriend, and that causes some issues as well. And I don't know, I'm doing a terrible job today of explaining stories, but again, really enjoyed it. If you like hockey, if you like new adult or adult romance novels, if you like sort of, I mean, the stories in some ways are predictable. You're going to get your happy ending, but the way that we get there is a little bit roundabout, then I would recommend these books. Another book that I want to talk about is Stepbrother Dearest by Penelope Ward. This one was an interesting concept, something that I haven't quite read before. I'm sure it probably exists, but I haven't read a similar storyline. We have Alec and Greta, and Greta's mum has married a guy, Randy, and they've sort of lived together for a little while, and then she has Randy's son come live with them for a really short amount of time. He has been living with his mum. His mum is going overseas, so he hasn't had the greatest relationship with his father, but he's coming to live with his father, his new wife, and his new stepsister. He actually starts out as quite a jerk. She, as in Greta, tries to make him feel welcome. She's kind of doesn't really know what to do with this whole stepbrother thing. She hasn't had a sibling before, but she tries to welcome him anyway. She's instantly attracted to him as well, and he is just an ass. But eventually you kind of see why he is the way that he is, and he realizes that no matter what he does to Greta, she's going to keep sort of being nice to him, and they form this bond. It does start off kind of innocent, but you can see that there's attraction there on both sides, and it kind of gets to a point where they get together in quite a dramatic way, and then he has to go off. And then we fast forward, I think it's almost like 10 years ahead, and he is brought back in, or Alec is brought back into Greta's life because of some dramatic circumstances, and you see that despite all this time that has passed, they still have this attraction and connection, and she sort of never let go of the love that developed for her stepbrother. Although, I mean, the relationship really wasn't stepbrother, stepsister. They were only lived together for a few months and while they were older. So it doesn't seem wrong in any way. I thought when I read this that it could go a little bit weird, but it didn't. They just sort of two people that were brought together because their parents were married at some point kind of thing. There's no blood relationship or anything like that, so that's fine. It's really dramatic, and their feelings, you can really feel the chemistry, and yeah, I won't go in any more of the story, but it was a good book. I enjoyed it. I liked sort of the period of time that it goes over, and if the story sounds appealing at all, I would recommend checking it out. Last few books that I wanted to mention, one of them is 10 Year Crush by Toshia Slade. This one is one of these ones where a girl, they meet, we sort of start when they're sort of, I think it's like 11, and maybe the older brother is 13. She's 11, her 11th birthday party, she meets her older brother's new friend and is instantly attracted to him. He's the older boy at like 13, and she has a bit of a crush, and he, I guess, sees her as his best friend's younger sister. And that's kind of how they grow up, and you kind of jump ahead, and it's now 10 years later, and it's her 21st birthday now. She is still very attracted to him. He is attracted to her, but doesn't really want to act on it because she's his best friend's little sister. But some things happen. At some point you get to a breaking point, and things sort of go from there. There's still sort of a little bit of give and take with that relationship because he doesn't necessarily want to ruin the relationship that he has with his best friend by breaking the heart of the younger sister. And there's chemistry. I liked the story. Again, it wasn't my favorite. I feel like some of the writing and some of the dialogue was a little bit over the top for my liking, but it was an okay story, and I was happy to read it to the end. I liked the ending. You get that happy ending. I liked the premise. I just think the execution wasn't as great as it could have been. I started a new series which is showing some promise. It's called Falling Down, a Rockstar novel by Anne Mercier. This one is definitely an adult book. We have a girl who's kind of had this crush on this rock star for many, many years. He's in like a rock band, and she grows up to be a model slash actress. She's mainly an actress. She's actually like an Academy Award nominated or winning actress, but at the same time she still does music videos and things like that. It's a little bit like far-fetched, some of the story, but they meet randomly once in an airport before that she's a star, and they have a little bit of a connection, and then he goes off. Then we jump ahead, and she and her cousin are going to be in this music video, and all the people around them don't really tell them whose music video they're going to be in, and then it turns out that it's this band, and her sort of crush from many, many years ago is there, and they have an instant attraction. They're a bit older now, so they can actually act on it, and they start a bit of a relationship, and she doesn't really quite know where it's going to go. He's going to go on tour at the same time that she kind of wants to stop doing her own acting, which is something that she's always done because of her mum, and she wants to start a band. So this book kind of surrounds music. It's definitely, like I said, an adult book. There's a lot of steaminess to it, a lot of adult themes, but I quite liked it. I think I might have given it 4 out of 5 stars. Maybe there was a few things I didn't think were absolutely perfect, but I definitely am intrigued by this series. I think there will probably be more books based on other members of the band. I really liked Jessie and Lucy as characters. I liked the story and storyline. Like I said, even though it was a little bit far-fetched, I thought it was interesting, and it's the start of a promising new series. I'm looking forward to reading more. The last book I have for this book chat is The Sterling Boys by C.M. Owens. This is book 3 in the Sterling Shore series. However, there's actually been 4 books because there was 1, 1.5, 2, and then 3. Each book has gotten better as they've gone along. This one has been my favorite so far, but I think it's a great thing or a great sign when an author, each book gets better and better. This one is Dane and Rain's story. We've met Dane and heard of Rain in the previous books as well, so I like when you kind of have heard a bit of backstory between the characters. Rain grew up with the Sterling Boys. There's 5 of them, and she always had a really close relationship with all of them, but she was in love with Dane for a very long time. When they were younger, they finally sort of had one night together when she was ready to confess her feelings, and she writes him a letter basically saying that she wants to do this, she wants to have a relationship, she's in love with him. And she was leaving for college the next day, I believe, and she never hears from him. Something happens, and he never contacts her, so she just thinks that he wasn't in love with her, and that was it. And their friendship kind of ends there. And then we flash forward, and she still has a relationship with the other 4 boys, but we kind of find out that Dane has feelings for her, and there may have been a bit of a miscommunication, and that's why nothing really progressed with them. But she's back in town. She's a writer, and she needs some inspiration, and she is now in his space, and you kind of see that maybe that, like I said, there was a miscommunication, and maybe that there is room for a relationship between them. I really liked the story. I liked the way it was put together. I thought it was interesting, and the storyline was a little bit unique, something that I hadn't necessarily read before. So I'm looking forward to reading more. It is like a new adult kind of contemporary romance novel. Steaminess, drama, it's all in there, and I quite enjoyed it. That is everything for my rambly book chat. I apologise if I was all over the place. I have read a lot of books in a short amount of time, so my brain gets a little bit scattered with storylines and things like that, and I probably should have prepared what I was going to say, but I was just kind of going off the cuff because I had a little bit of time to film. So apologise for that, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. All the books will be listed down below with links, so you can check them out if you are interested. If you read any of them, let me know, and definitely tell me what you think, because I want to be able to talk about the books with you guys and see if you have the same feelings about them as I did. And yeah, leave me your own book recommendations for me, and I'll talk to you guys all next time. Bye!